Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Bikini and the Brain podcast. My name is Ashley Kaltwasser, and here beside me is Adam Bonilla from Team ElitePhysique.com. If you don't know, you know now.
It's quality intro.
Quality intro. Let's talk a little bit about the Arnold Classic today because the list came out last week, and I want it.
Yeah.
Oh, what do you know? I want it.
I know a girl or two on there.
Yeah. Actually, Team Elite Physique comprises 20% of that Arnold list.
So. That is not bad. Not bad at all.
Not bad, yes. So
yeah.
Good job, Coach Adam.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. I'm actually excited about this one. Mm-hmm. And Ashley K., you're on the list. You're excited about this?
Yeah, I mean, the Arnold Classic, I have great memories. I want to say the Arnold Classic 2012, the Arnold Amateur 2012 was, I would like to say, the show that started my career, honestly. So, I competed locally in Pittsburgh and in Ohio a few times, and I won like an overall or two. But these are small shows we were talking about. But I went to the Arnold Classic in 2012, and I won overall there. And it was a huge show because, the competitors from all over the world, they go to the Arnold Classic so they can get like their pro card. But here's the funny thing is back then in 2012, Americans couldn't get their pro card at the Arnold Classic. So although I was the overall winner, I wasn't able to get my pro card there. And what sucked was the other competitors from different countries, they were in different height classes. I beat them because I won the overall, right? But since they were from another country, they petitioned to get their pro card, and they got their pro card before me. Okay, I'm like, are you serious? But it was the show that started out because that was the first show, a big show that I won, and that was the moment I was like, whoa, I'm kind of good at this. I can do this. So I was able to get my pro card later that year, but I was like so surprised because it's like, girl from Ohio. I drove 2 hours to get there and people coming all over the world to go there. I felt like, whoa, this is so cool. And it was the first time that I wore a green bikini as well. So that's where the green bikini was born.
And it took like 9 years to get her off of a green bikini.
Now I'm back. I'm back.
Yeah, she's back to green.
Go green.
We talked about that for like, I don't know, a year before you finally went red. And then she went red for a year, but you did a good job. 2 years? 2 years. You still interchange red now though here too.
I interchange with the Christmas colors, I'm always afraid they're never going to recognize me if I switch it up too much. So I'm very reluctant to change.
Yeah. I think we've gone back to green for the most part. I think we both have been like, green is a good color.
Green is a good. And I always say the thing about green is it's a color that is harder to pull off for some girls, which makes it unique that I can. So you won't see as many greens as you would like blue bikinis, for example. Blue is just like, I don't want to do blue.
Yeah, I saw
too many blues.
It's
the safest color.
Did you see that? There was like a stats thing. Did you send it to
me?
Someone sent me a stats. I got to look it up again. If you guys remember, it's someone sent it to me in like a DM. Someone did like a percentage of suit colors at the Olympia, and it was like 40% blue.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? And then the next one was purple. Yeah, and that's crazy. Yeah,
and probably red. Then.
Green was the lowest percentage. It was green and pink.
There's some off colors too, like a black or whatever. What was the other color that was unique? I can't remember. But yeah, it's not a very, very common color. Yeah. Like it's still, it's not like you're going to go to a show and not see any green suits. But in comparison to blue, you don't see as many green. Because blue is, like I always say, if you want a safe color, a color that looks good on everyone is basically like a royal blue. Yeah. So if you're playing it safe, do royal blue.
Yeah, especially if it's like your first few shows. I think that's a great thing to go kind of find what works for you, what your posing style is and whatnot too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's different shades of blue too, you know? I mean, there's lighter, there's darker. I do see like the royal blue is, I think, the most common blue, if I'm not mistaken. But, it's a great color if you want to play it safe. I don't think a judge would say, that color doesn't work on you because it works on everyone. Yeah.
So we're going into the Arnold now. So game plan is changing this week for Ashley. Yeah. And I think, we haven't talked about this in a while. So we're going to talk a little bit about like setting up and pre-prep and just getting ready. And this was, we knew going into the Arnold last week before they announced the names that there was a chance that she was going to get in. We didn't know how good that chance was. We weren't like...
Me?
Yeah. We weren't like, oh, you're for sure. Nothing's ever for sure.
Listen.
I'm trying to be.
I mean, I'm very realistic, but I was assuming I would be.
Okay. I didn't want to say it. I don't want to say like for sure.
Well, you never know. That's true. You never know. But I won the Arnold before.
Yeah.
Like, so it's
and you just won the Arnold UK. So like,
I mean,
so that helps.
Yeah. But you're right though. It's not a guaranteed thing. I assumed I would be on it just because when I apply for it, I get in. But yeah, the Arnold's unique because it's not necessarily based off of like, not all based on how well you've done. It can be like different, like they brought back a girl that's won years ago. They brought back the amateur winner. So the amateur winner gets an automatic invite to the Arnold next year, which I got mine after my win in 2012. So that was one advantage, I guess. And then, sometimes they'll pick like somebody that has a unique story or somebody that's from, a country that's not representative. So who knows the reasons they actually pick the competitors, right? It's the Arnold committee that picks it. So it's not based off of placings necessarily, although placing well does pretty much help you a great deal. So yeah.
Yeah, so we were kind of thinking, okay, we were basically thinking we were in.
Well, I was assuming I was in, but you know what? I shouldn't assume. I shouldn't.
There hasn't been a year you haven't. So we'll just going off of numbers. There hasn't been a year since you applied that you haven't got in. So we were basically looking at that, and we talked about going into a pre-prep. And so kind of setting up for the prep. So, what is that exactly? Getting you ready for the prep. So the goal of a kind of a mini off season is to get the calories as high as possible and the cardio as low as possible without blowing up and gaining, significant amount of body fat. A little bit, yeah, of course, but just a little bit, so basically trying to create your starting point being at baseline again, as low as cardio, as high as calories type of thing. And in our short period of time, we have been able to get pretty lucky with getting those calories up.
Yeah, and it made me nervous the whole time. My body is not used to having that many calories. And I was like, okay, Adam, I'll do it. But I was like feeling a little bit of a guilt. Like, oh my gosh, I hope it doesn't catch up with me, because I would like to say on average, I'm around that. It's hard to say an average for me because it's like either I'm in prep or I'm close to being in prep. So I'm not like, it's hard for us to really put an average. I want to say I'm like 1,500 average probably with my count, all things considered. And we got up to like 2,000. Oh my gosh. That's a lot for me. That's a lot of food. Okay. I don't eat that much. Like I don't have the biggest appetite. I had to like do it in sneaky ways. Like I had to like, I found that like to increase my like carbs and stuff, I was better off snacking than having like a full meal of like oatmeal or rice or quinoa. Like it's easier for me to graze throughout the day on carbs rather than like, here's your huge bowl of quinoa. Because I'm telling you guys, I'm not kidding. Like I don't have the biggest appetite. So I don't like to feel super, super full. Like, I don't like that feeling of being like, oh my God, I'm stuffed, So we got it in though.
Yeah. And to give you guys a kind of a marker for where her average being like 1,500, more times than not, we're at like 1650, 17 in like that mini off season, and then 12, 13, 14 in the prep. And so the average out, I would say about 15 or so is like the average whole of the year. So this is higher. And it was weird because, we went to the normal 1,700 or so after this. I think it was 1,740 if I remember correctly, off after the show. And then she ended up leaning out and losing some weight.
I got so small. And when I wasn't working out the week, that was my deload week. But that was the week I was sick.
Yeah.
So I don't know if like my body was kind of like needing more calories to fight the sickness. But I will say this, I was sleeping like so well the week I was sick. It was almost like a blessing in disguise. Like I was like not able to sleep as well. And then I was sleeping like 9 hours some night when I was sick. I was like a little blessing in disguise, but I needed it. And then after I got done being sick, I'm like, whoa, I feel amazing. I'm all like stocked up on sleep. So it was, it is what it is. But yeah, I got small.
Yeah, a little bit. Lost a little bit of weight. So we ended up raising the calories up, and it's always going to be, and I think that's important for people to see that too, is that no two preps are ever going to be exactly the same. No two peak weeks are going to be exactly the same. And, it doesn't matter how advanced you are, there's always going to be something new. The body just has a mind of its own, and we just respawn based on the check-in every week. So, so that's important for you guys to know. If you found a peak week that works one time, and I made this mistake too as a coach years prior, I found a peak week that worked for someone, and I was like, this is it. This is our peak week. And I was like, then I tried to use it again, and it was a totally different result. And I was like, man, that's that sucks. Like,
Yeah.
it's that I didn't see how that would be. It's the same person, you know, like other thing, but it's not. It's a different situation. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense sometimes. Like even when I'm prepping into shows, sometimes it's like easy. Like I remember going into Toronto last year. I wasn't initially going to do Toronto, but I was just like unintentionally got so lean without trying much. And I was like, shoot, I might as well jump into to Toronto, right? Whereas I've had shows where I was like fighting to get lean enough to be stage ready. So without any reason, sometimes your body just does what it does, and you just got to be very, you just got to pay very close attention. Like when we're raising calories, I still need to check in. I got to make sure we're not like getting out of control, you know, because I think that's where a lot of people go wrong is they'll start to get into that off season, raise calories without like doing the measurements, without doing the weight, without taking pictures. And they just assume, yeah, I'm fine. I'm in off season. So as long as you track it and you're super like aware of what's going on, you know, it's good to try to see at least how you can get the calories up. But I always say this too, I never want to force feed myself. I'm very much against it. So that's why sometimes you have to like find alternatives. Like, you know, I was snacking throughout the day on carbs rather than having it all in one bowl, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's hard. People don't get it. It's funny because we have, and we're going to do an interview soon with like Elizabeth, who's in town from the Faroe Islands, and she's staying at the prep house for 2 months trying to grow. She eats a ton of food. She eats over 4,000 calories right now a day. And everyone's like, oh, I wish I could eat that. And I'm like, no, you wish you could eat that for a day maybe. And then after like 3 days accumulatively, you just get really tired of eating. Yeah. And that was one of the main reasons I stopped bodybuilding was the food. Like I got up to 5,000 calories plus a day. And I just always had digestive issues, like always had acid reflux. And like, it's just the amount of food you're just always eating and always feel full. And I'm like, there's a good point for everyone. And as like a guy, for me, it was like 3,000. I was like, I feel fine. I feel good. I can digest my food. And for most women, it's in that 2,000 range where it's like, you start getting past that 2,500, you're like, most of them are like, oh, it's so much food. I got to eat another 500 calorie meal. I'm eating already 5 of them. And it's like,
it's hard, you know, especially as like physique athletes, we try to eat healthy, you know, and the healthier you eat, the harder it is to get all those calories in, assuming you're eating the quote clean foods. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So of course we don't want to like just fill ourselves up with junk. Like we're not trying to like do the whole Pop-Tart thing. And I mean, there are certain scenarios where you kind of have to, you know, but that's a very rare thing. We try to keep it as clean as possible, you know? And the cleaner you eat, and I hate that word because there is no clean food, but you know what I'm saying? The healthier you eat, the less likely you're going to feel like crap, you know what I mean? Like all bloated and sluggish. I do think that like, you know, the healthier you eat, the better you feel, in my opinion. But
I think the healthier you eat, the better you look too. You know, when I'm looking at people who are doing like pure macro, because there's like a lot of different variations of macro dieting, I will say too. When I see people who are doing like the pure macro exchanging and like they're eating whatever they want into prep, like while they're in prep, I never see their waistlines get as small as someone who's maybe they're macro dieting, but all clean foods, you know, because there's 2 ways of doing it. You could macro diet and just fit your foods in and eating 5 times a day, eating chicken, which is basically a clean eating menu plan. You just kind of call it a macro plan type of thing. Or you could go the whole other way, which is the, you know, fitting pizza, Pop-Tart, all those things. And I always see that waistline on them is never as small. And when they finally convert to clean foods, then I'm like, oh, there it is. And then their waistline gets sucked in. And I'm like, you can argue with me all you want, but I could see it on your body, you know, like at the up, maybe at the local level, maybe you can get away with it. But when you get to that upper tier, you're like, when everyone's not doing it and you're the only one doing it that way, you could usually see it. You know, you could usually see it. So that's something, you know, as it sucks because you can only get such a small data pool of that. And there's very few people are doing it. So, but the ones I ever see try to sneak in there, I'm like, yeah, your waist is wide compared to them. You're bloated more wider than them by an inch or so. Because you could see over the years when people do it for a long time eating clean, their waist will still get smaller and smaller. And it's like, so there is something to it. It's one of those things that's never going to get proven. And people can argue against it 100%. Like there's going to be strong arguments like against that, but visually you can see it, you know? So I don't know. It's one of those things. I think that there's a benefit to it. And I think total food volume is a benefit too. So there's the argument there. It would be the argument. Well, if you eat less volume, you know, I could see that being the thing. But so if you are one of those higher calorie eaters, that's a good point that you brought up. I actually was talking to a bodybuilder, and he was here visiting the prep center. He actually signed the wall, and he was saying that he was drinking regular Coke. He was like, "Yeah, I had to start drinking regular Coke instead of Diet Coke just for the extra calories." And I was like, "Yeah, I guess that makes sense." And what are you gonna do? You know, he was like eating so much. Like he was past 6,000, and so he's like, "I'm just too big now. I just have to eat like anything. He's like, so yeah, it was like putting oils on his foods and drinking regular Cokes. And he's like, just to get the calories in. And I was like, yeah, I mean, there's at a certain point, what do you do? Give you more rice? Like it's a lot, you know? So
the bodybuilder is much different than us.
It's so
you know,
hard.
they're really trying to push the calories there. But yeah, it's tough.
The bodybuilders I give a lot of credit to. One, I think the bikini competitors and bodybuilders both work out as hard relative to their structures and relative to their strength, right? I think they both work. But the bodybuilders, the way they have to live to be a bodybuilder, I give them so much credit because the food, the sleep, the everything, right? Like it's sometimes it's kind of miserable, you know, being a bodybuilder, just eating and eating and eating and just like pounds of food a day.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah.
And I will say this as well, just to add on to what you said, although maybe you can make the argument they train as hard relatively, bodybuilders to get to where they need to be spend years upon years upon years upon years doing that. Whereas bikini, if you got some good genetics, you might be able to go pro within a year or two if you're, you know, got good genetics. That's not going to happen for bodybuilders.
Yeah, no
They're
way.
not going to put on like 100 pounds in a year.
No, I've had girls from day one coming from like a sport to pro bikini in 2 years. I've had that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not them lifting for their sport. They're just playing sports, you know, and then going pro in 2 years.
Yeah.
It's funny because when bikini like first started, you would have bodybuilders and be like, oh, this is my first show. This is my first show. I'm like, oh, cool. How long you been training? He's like, oh, 15 years, you know, like their first show. And like the bikini girls are like, oh yeah, how long you been training? She's like, oh, about 6 months. that was,
Or
I
even
mean,
less.
yeah, that was like, you know, 2012 bikini. And now it's, you know, a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, which I think is great for that. You know, that I think it should be hard. I think there should be a 2-3 year physique for that.
Totally.
But yeah, bodybuilders, it's funny. Like, it's like bodybuilders are peaking at like 38, 40, like, they're like, unless you get these new guys like Derek and Nick who are like just young, and Chrizzo's young too, that are like, you know, complete abnormalities of the norm of, I guess that was abnormality is, of like the normal ages of where people are peaking. They're peaking at like 25, 26.
Well,
it's
maybe
crazy.
They haven't peaked yet. You
Can
don't
you
know.
imagine?
You don't know. Maybe they haven't peaked though.
The way that Nick is growing, if you imagine him like at 35, if he's growing at this rate, I mean, he's gonna have to stop at a certain point. Could you be too big for bodybuilding? I mean, it's like crazy. So it is pretty cool to see these days in the bodybuilding. And they're not. A lot of those top guys aren't doing the Arnold, which was surprising too.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys saw the list, there's only 10 competitors each division competing at the Arnold, which is crazy. It's quite the 180 from the Olympia, yeah?
Yeah.
There's going to be 2 call-outs, a first call-out and a second call-out, 10 girls. So you're not going to be going numb sitting in the seat watching as, how many was there, 50-something?
Yeah.
50-something girls pass through the stage, so 10.
Pretty wild when you think about it, because that's a lot to bank on 10 people in each division, because someone's going to get sick. Like there's going to be someone that's going to have, right? And that many divisions, there's probably going to be, let's say 2-3 people. So there might be 2 in one class where it's like only 8 people show up because someone got sick or something.
Or couldn't get in
the country. They got COVID recently. They lost so much, you know, something.
Yeah, it's going to be noticeable though. I was like, you can't just like, just step out and be like, yeah. Nope, all eyes are on you. I mean, this is the smallest classes since I think ever. I don't think I've ever seen only 10 per division. That's crazy. That is insane.
Yeah, I just hope that too many people don't get sick or anything, because you could shrink a division really fast. I mean, losing 2 people is 20%, you know, 30% with 3 people in one. And everyone got that, whoever got that, the Olympia flu or whatever they're calling it.
We're going to call it the Olympia Cron strain.
Okay.
The Olympia Cron. I think I had the Olympia Cron.
You had it. Everyone had the Olympia
Had the
Cron.
Olympia Cron.
It's crazy, right? I don't know how I didn't get it. So all my friends got it. Like I would say 60% of my friends got sick at the Olympia. I don't know what happened. Craziness. You got it? Yeah.
Can't believe cockroach got it. You know what I'm saying?
I know the cockroach got it.
This is the invincible.
You're supposed to be. You got lied to. You're gonna check your genetics.
We'll blame it on the no sleep and stress. There we go.
So going back into the pre-prep. All right. So she did the Olympia, had a deload week where basically, you know, we pushed.
Didn't work out.
we pushed really hard going into the Olympia. You know, whenever you're going to do one of these tier 1 shows, these big shows, I mean, most shows actually, if you're doing nationals, you're doing whatever, you know, you're going to have your shows that are kind of practice shows if you're trying to work your way up as a amateur. Let's say you're doing like a regular NPC show, and one is just for more stage time. And then you're 2 weeks out from nationals, so you're just trying to get qualified for nationals for next year or something. And so you're not giving everything. You're not doing peaking all the way through. But then nationals, you're like, I'm going all out. I'm going to give it as hard as I can. I'm going to get as lean as I can and go all out. Well, maybe that's when you do your deload after that. Olympia is a perfect example of that. You go all out. Whatever you got to do, cardio wise, you're going to do it, right? With lifting wise, you're going to do it. So, body needs a little bit of a deload. Basically, let your nervous system recover, let your muscular system recover, let your body just kind of heal. And then we go into we're still doing check-ins. We see how our body's responding. We raise the calories up to maintenance calories, or what we think maintenance calories are now. And then based on her next check-in, we start adjusting accordingly. Cardio is done. We're not doing any cardio to change the settings down. And then now prep starts basically now, or
like right now at the second. What is the time right now?
It is 12:07.
It is 12:07, January 9th, 2023, and prep has officially began for the Arnold Classic. Can I get a round of applause in the comment section? Please. Thank you. Thank you.
Prep is starting today. She did her check-in. Cardio will start. The cardio city starts up a little bit today, I'm assuming.
Too late for the cardio. I don't do cardio in the afternoon. Who do you think
not today,
okay.
but like today.
I was going to say.
The programming today starts.
Okay, yeah.
So, we'll start that up. And, so here we go. We're doing our check-in after this, actually the podcast. I see her check-ins in the system. So,
woo.
Yeah. People always wonder like how it does. Ashley checks in like everyone else.
Yeah, I'm
checks
just a normal person.
I like the data.
No, I like it too because I can see like, okay, this week I look like this. My measurements are this. Last week, this and this. And I really like to use it for reference, like when I'm going into shows, if I'm like unsure of things, like, dang, I don't know if I'm going to be ready. What was my weight before the Olympia? Like 2 weeks before Olympia, what was I weighing? Yeah. What did I look like? What were my measurements? And then I can use that to kind of compare, and be like, oh, no, I'm on the right track. I'm where I need to be or whatever the case may be. But no, I like to see it too. It's good to look back on and to plan your preps and, even looking back, like, how many calories was I doing at that time or whatever. And if I was off that show, I wonder why. We can go back and, not do the same thing again. Yeah, so it's good. It's good.
It's a good data collection for, especially for when you're having the arguments with yourself where you're like, am I too lean? Or am I too soft? And that's I would say the argument is more often, am I too soft? That people are going to have. So when you look back on it and you're like, no, I was actually exactly here 2 weeks before whatever show. So it's kind of nice to have that for that data reason. So if you guys aren't doing that, if your coach isn't having you do that, do it yourself. Track your measurements on your waist, on your hips, whatever. Maybe you store more body fat on your thighs. Like just track the places that are stubborn for you too with measurements, with pictures, and then look at how you look before the show, and then keep that as a reference going into your next shows, where you're at versus where you need to be. And it's just good for the mind to see, and it's also good to keep you in check because sometimes you might be behind and you're like, no, I am softer right now. I need to step it up, and then you could send those pictures to your coach. You're like, here are my pictures last time we were 2 weeks out where the judges said I needed to be a little bit tighter, right? And then you're like, okay, yeah, you're right. We need to speed it up, that type of thing. So good as a reference point. So now going into the Arnold prep, her body is ready to go. It's basically, we call primed. Her calories are high. Her cardio is nothing. Once we turn that switch and reduce calories a little bit and raise cardio just a little bit, it should result in some stimulus for some more results. So it should be pretty smooth. We'll see what happens as time goes on, but that initial week especially is like a really good week because the body's used to all these calories and no cardio, and we just invert those two just a little bit, and then next thing you know, it starts going, and then hopefully we can keep those calories high and that cardio low until the body realizes, hey, I'm in prep. I need to stop losing fat. And then hopefully we can do that before it realizes it. And there you go. Yeah. So we'll keep checking in weekly and making adjustments accordingly. And that's basically the goal of that kind of pre-prep phase, is to take a step back, let the body recover, and get you set up for a good prep. So
yeah, totally. And it's also important to note that like when we are raising cardio, especially like we don't just like start with, oh yeah, I'm going to do cardio every day intensely. No, we just slowly ease into it is the ideal. And the longer we can go without, doing those two things, the longer we can go without raising the cardio significantly and lowering the calories significantly, the better. It's kind of like you want to save that for when you need it. You don't want to exhaust your tools, I guess is how you say tools, like tools in the box, So cardio is a tool, that's why I always say it's really not a good thing to become too good at cardio, because you're just making it hard on yourself, because you're going to have to go longer and more intensely every time you do cardio if you get too good at it. So that's why we kind of back off when we don't need it and then save it for when we do. And then, that way we can keep going strong, And the other thing I like about not having to do cardio if I don't need to is I can focus more on lifts, because what happens is, I'm a morning cardio person, right? It's like one of those things, like if I don't do it first thing in the morning, I lose motivation to do it. So I do it first thing in the morning. And what happens is, if I'm putting my energy towards cardio, I'm likely not going to have the same energy when I come back to lift. You know what I'm saying? I would much rather focus my energy and attention on lifting and building, and then use cardio when I need it, right? So, I've done Orange Theories before to get ready for shows as cardio, and it's like, yeah, I can do Orange Theory, and that's great that I'm doing cardio, but if I have to lift after this, am I going to have that same amount of energy and focus, or did I just spend all my energy doing cardio because I'm trying to get lean? You know what I mean? So the longer we can hold off on doing a significant amount, the better.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, I think that the people who are listening on Instagram are kind of asking a couple of questions on pre-prep. You guys, we want to ask questions about the pre-prep. We're happy to kind of jump into them with this podcast. So one of the questions that we got was about, maintenance calories. And I think we can go into that real quick. It says, what can you do if your maintenance calories are not that high, but you have a good amount to lose before prep? So, everything's relative. She says she's only 109. So everything's relative. So if your calories just aren't that high, well, also, here's the thing we have to also look at. One, we have all these kind of arbitrary numbers that we come up with. They're just like random numbers that like you hear before. You're like, oh, for some reason, 1,200 calories is one of them. Like, why is that a number? Why is that? Like, that should be my minimum. Should that be your minimum? Like, where are you getting that from? Right? Or people have that 2,000 calorie diet. It should be for everyone's diet. But Ashley's been eating, on average 15 to 1,700 for a long period of time. Why isn't that healthy for her? Because we know she's healthy. We check. So get those numbers like kind of out of your head, because it's going to be relative to you. Maybe you're 109 pounds, so you're small already, so you're not going to burn that many calories to begin with because you're 109 pounds, versus someone who you're looking at their diet who's 209 pounds. Well, of course, they're going to burn more calories than you. They weigh more than you. Maybe your job isn't as that active. Maybe you work at a computer and your average steps are below 2,000 a day. Maybe that's part of the reason, right? So whatever, it's not that your calories are low. They might be exactly normal for you in your situation, being 109 pounds and working a desk job and not being that active and not doing any extracurriculars like hiking and things like that. You might be totally normal. Maybe you're below normal by a little bit, but it looks very low because of what you're used to hearing. You hear anyone who's below 1,200 calories is hurting themselves so bad. Well, if you're 5 foot tall and 95 pounds, 1,200 calories might be a lot of food for you. It's all relative, So just take that into consideration. Your maintenance calories might not be low. So I would start there before just jumping to a conclusion that your calories are low, because it is very different per person, per situation. And there are different, just higher calorie burners. Yeah. You might just be completely average or maybe a little below average, and you're thinking it's something else. We had, for example, when we bring Elizabeth in, I had her resting metabolic rate ran, and it was 2,200, Arthur, or 2,000 some change? It was 2,200, right? 2,200. Yeah, so that's like crazy high metabolic rate. So even my metabolic rate, when I'm over her weight by like 70 pounds, was 1,700 calories. So like,
I want to do it. I haven't done it in a long time.
We just got to recalibrate it. We can do it after this. Or
do you have to be on an empty stomach or anything?
Before you take in any caffeine.
Oh,
yeah.
So too late.
I don't know when we're going to do that for you.
Too late.
So yeah, that's we could do that in our 3D scanner. I spent a few hours with it on that day. Last day you're here Wednesday, and then we're going to have to fix it again today. So it should be fixed after today. But yeah, we're getting all of our everything set up, ready for the season again. Everything's recalibrated. So anyway, that was a question. If you guys have any more, welcome to answer them. Okay, so this is a really good question about like pre-prep too. And this is kind of going into what you're talking about with like the cardio being a high setting already. So you could jump into this one. But it says if one does 10K steps a day average, could that affect cardio efficiency and cardio like total duration or prep?
I think of it as two separate things. I don't think steps count quite as cardio. I mean, I guess you can, what is it, race walking? But I wouldn't consider it. It's a totally different thing. It's more, I guess, into the NEAT category, I would say, which is not cardio. It's just staying active, which I think is great. And actually, I would suggest that to people that like, you know, are addicted to cardio. They want to do it first thing. But, you know, you want to like, hey, chill on the cardio, get some more steps in, even if it's just walking on the treadmill, like at a normal pace, not like with the incline up, not getting out of breath. But I consider it two different things. What about you?
Yeah, it's an intensity based thing,
Yeah.
you know? So, what I will say is that in terms of the question, so if you're getting ready for a show, it's highly unlikely that someone's going to get ready for a show just doing like steps. Like I've never had anyone like a top tier person or a pro card, like someone who got a pro card just doing steps, unless they were extremely genetically blessed. Like I have, like, for example, Louisa, she never had to do cardio, but she was like, she never gains body fat. Like it's really hard for her to gain body fat, even when we're high in calories. So for her, it's always diet, right? So someone like that, yeah. But there's we're talking micro fractions of 1% of people who can do it. But I will say, when I run into people who have high step counts, like 10,000, usually it's not an issue. 8,000 is usually not an issue. But I have a couple people who are getting in 20,000+ steps a day. And those people end up doing higher total cardio to create any stimulus. That's the only thing. Because, you know, if you're adding, let's say you're adding 2,000 steps in with your cardio, but you're already doing 20,000 steps. Yeah, it's not that great of a stimulus for someone who's already used to moving that much. So yeah, the more steps you do on average, so the more active you are on average, it does, at least from my minimal data pool, does look like you're going to end up doing more cardio for the show in that scenario. That seems to be a very common thing. So, so yeah, I would say, yeah, it does have some effect on it, at least in my data pool from my experience. Yeah. So
Yeah. I think that's a good, I kind of like an off season, I don't even want to say cardio, but a great way to get moving, especially like in the wintertime, you know, where you don't want to do cardio, but you know, you don't want to get fluffy. You want to keep moving. Just, you know, just get some steps in, you know, and the intensity isn't quite as draining either. So
yeah, exactly. And it's for like when people are doing like a deload and they're out of the gym, I'll usually give them like steps for that week just so they can be out of the gym instead of doing cardio, that type of thing.
You just don't want to be sitting there the whole time, you know?
Yeah. Or if someone is working, let's say someone is doing doing prep, you know, I will have those weird scenarios where someone might be like a nurse and then on their nursing days, they'll get like 25,000 steps. I'll say, okay, on that day, don't do your cardio, but on the other days, you'll end up doing more. So that kind of thing. So it balances out a little bit with like total steps. That's if it's not working. So there's like scenarios where those things come in, but it's not really like a standard thing. I would say it's not a problem until you get to like the 20,000+ step thing where it becomes an issue. So, but yeah, I think the most steps I've ever taken was 32,000 and I got lost on a trail. I remember how much I had to do when I did that. And I was like, I looked at my steps and I was like, dang, that's crazy. And then it's funny because I remember how lost I was and what it took to get off of that trail.
That's scary.
Dude, it was scary. It was really scary. It was like, I just moved to Colorado and I was like, I'm going to be part of the Colorado lifestyle. I'm going to go on these trails and be a mountain boy. Get to the top of this hill with my cardboard sign and say 5,000 feet. I was such a I fell right into it, right? Which I had a year of that, right? I didn't go as far as buying a Subaru, but I did go there. I did go there. So, no, I went on this, I was like by myself and I just moved to Denver and I went on this trail and I'm from California, you know, the concrete jungle. So I took this trail, but then I realized after I got lost, so I told someone what I did. And he's like, oh no, you took an animal trail off of the main trail is what it is. And I didn't know that animals make trails. I was like, animals make trails? I was like, how are they making trails? I guess if they going on past a water or something, it just eventually creates a trail. I didn't know that. So I guess they have their own trails. Did you know this? Yeah. So apparently that's a thing in the wild. These guys are creating trails for each other and road maps in the wild. I don't know. And then I realized they're like smaller, like little paths that like animals just, I guess, naturally create by going to water or whatever source. And so, yeah, so that was really funny. It's a funny story because I was lost. The sun was going down and I was like, dude, I need to figure this out. And so I ended up like going to the tallest mountain, like little hill mountain that there was there. Like there was no trail. And I just cut through all the brush and got to the top of it so I could like see where civilization was. And I just ran in that direction. I jogged in that direction towards civilization until I found some people. And then I just followed people. I was too embarrassed to ask them if they're about to finish or about to start. So I was just like, I'm just going to follow them. I'm just going to get off this trail. I made it. I'm here.
Yes,
so
thank gosh.
That's a funny story though, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was the most. So anyway, now that I see, when I see someone get that many steps, I think about, wow, they broke the 30 threshold and that's just their normal life. That was like my worst day of stepping in my life. And that's their average. I need to get moving. That's like a Tuesday afternoon for them. How come I'm so itty fishy with my movement? It's so crazy. I got to start doing some more movement. Let's go shopping. Let's do something. Let's walk.
You should get one of those treadmills with the desk. You know?
Oh, that's a lot of work.
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot of work. Let's forget that whole idea. Let's
get one of those under the desk
peddlers. It's great for the hip flexors. So, all right. There's my other story about my embarrassing moments. Anyway, what else we got going into this Arnold here?
I think with the pre-prep as well, we need to address like how to get your mindset right and to set up your routine and schedule. So, you know, depending on how far off season you've been, you are used to eating a certain way and you're used to doing this and that, and just realize, hey, schedule and diet's going to change obviously as you start to get into prep. So you need to get your mind right. You need to get prepared. Like, go grocery shopping ahead of time because, you know, it's like once you start, you don't want to use the excuse, oh, well, I can't get to the grocery store till Thursday. So, you know, whatever, I'll start Thursday, you know? So just be prepared and just realize that you're going to have to adapt a routine. And even if that means like throwing in a couple like really clean prep meals in your regular menu, just to get used to the taste of prep food, go for it. Because it is, you know, I feel like a lot of people have that whenever they're adjusting from off season to prep, their taste buds haven't adjusted and they're like not looking forward to the food. They don't like it. It doesn't taste good. I think it's good to kind of ease into it and show your taste buds what's up. Like, hey, you're going to be having this, so you better like it.
Well, and then also, let's say you're newer to this, you're still getting in through that initial curve of wanting to be, you know, a competitor long-term, and you haven't worked your taste buds up to Ashley's taste bud level. Taste bud strength. Are we going to call it taste bud strength?
Yeah.
Flexi text. I imagine just like tongues, like just flexing.
I don't know if they're strong though, because these taste buds can't handle seafood. So.
Oh yeah, you do.
Or turkey or pork.
You know what you have, Ashley? You have snobby taste buds.
They are snobby, but at the same time, no, because I eat out of containers and
that's true. I feel like if
you're like 99-cent mustard.
If your taste buds were drinking tea, they'd have their pinky up.
Yeah? I don't know. I'm not a fancy eater. I am not, you know something. You know this about me.
A fancy eater.
If I were to go out to eat and I didn't have to pay, I would much rather go to a chilled out restaurant where I can lick the plate than be all fancy and dress up and feel weird if I like put my elbow on the table. Like,
yeah.
What, you know, what is that?
I'm the same way.
Give me the like the low key food and I want to lick the plate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm the same way. I'm more about like fun and good food than the like, I feel like it's like you have to give off an appearance.
Yeah. Like you're too uptight and like, you don't know what these menu items are and you feel weird asking for substitutions. Like, can I get chicken instead of like tartare or whatever the heck that is? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I've only been to one where it was like that, like a French restaurant where I didn't know anything was in the menu. I was an annoyance and I didn't eat the food I wanted to eat because I was embarrassed to ask the whole thing. Like, aww. I was like, yeah. So I ended up, yeah. So after that, I'm like, no, I'm cool with like Cheesecake Factory. I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
Red Robin's my jam.
Heck
so, yeah. No, but going into like, if you're getting like your taste buds ready, right, and you're struggling with it, you know, if you need to ease into it, like Ashley's saying, I think that's something that you need to discuss with your coach because no matter what, the best diet is one you're going to stick to. That's always the answer. So if you're struggling, and there's just no way you're going to be successful and you're like forcing yourself on this diet, like just talk to your coach. And maybe you could do a free meal. Maybe your coach will lower the total calories throughout the day, throughout the week, but then give you all those calories in one meal once a week or twice a week, however it works out for you. And then you have your date night with whoever, and then you have your girls' night, whatever, if you have it. And you don't feel like you're completely like sacrificing so much of your regular life, So that's totally understandable if you need that. And I think that that's something that, we should, that's something we shouldn't like bash and say, oh yeah, you're weak for it or anything like that, because you're not. I think that's something that a lot of people do just to have that as balanced as they can be in life, Yeah.
And you can even use me as an example. Like I'll say, Adam, I will not eat seafood. Do not put that on my menu. Yeah, sure. I won't, if you like, let's say I never spoke up and I was trying to tough it out. And this whole time you were putting like seafood on my menu and I was trying to eat it, I probably wouldn't even, I probably would be fluffy right now. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I wouldn't enjoy it. I would probably just mix my own substitution or just be miserable. And, I think like, the one thing we try to promote is prep doesn't have to be miserable.
Yeah.
You can have fun during prep, believe it or not. I know you do have to work hard for sure, but it can be fun. It doesn't have to be miserable. You don't have to do all these crazy things like freaking tilapia and asparagus every meal and boiling your chicken with no seasoning.
Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah, that's so hardcore.
Yeah.
It's so old too. Like we did that in like the 90s, like where it was like boiled chicken because we didn't know anything,
Yeah.
And so that was, I mean, it was like prep back then was like going to war. You weren't even like, it wasn't even prep. It was like I need to live in a different world. Like it wasn't even, it was just so different. You couldn't eat anywhere. You couldn't eat out. You had to eat from Tupperware. Like it was boiled chicken, Mrs. Dash, and asparagus, and then most of the time it was fish, like 8 weeks out. It was just like,
oh my gosh,
we just didn't know any better,
Yeah, but
brown rice only, like for some reason, only brown rice is the only acceptable carb.
No seasonings. Yeah, it was just, but yeah, that just goes to show you, like, I guess I'm. You can call me weak then for saying I won't eat this fish that you give me. Yeah. So I've had that conversation with you, and I'm like, no seafood, don't like turkey. I can't do eggs unless they're muscle. Like that's the only way I can eat eggs. And that's not even just a plug. It's true. That's the only way I can eat eggs.
She likes sweet food.
I like sweets. Yes. Yeah. So like, that's just an example. And I will always refuse to drink my carbs.
Yeah. That was our fight last year.
So
let's just, I'll never forget that moment. Were you in here for that? She like sat back in the chair, laid herself at the back of the chair. She's like, let's just not even do it. That was the one crank. And then she's like 5 minutes. She's like, I'm sorry, I was cranky. She's like, I won't. But
I'll eat my carbs. But I mean, for real though. So we all have our things that we're like, I'm not going to follow the menu unless I'm not eating this, or I have to have this. We all have it, you know? So again, going back to what you said, don't feel like you're a failure for asking adjustments. We both want to make this to work the best way we can. So if you're like, oh no, I really enjoy this and it makes me happy. It's what I look forward to the most in my week. This one item that I have once a week with my husband or whatever, keep it in there as long as we can. We make it work. Don't feel like you're asking too much for adjustments. Yeah,
for sure. I think that's a good point to bring up. And I think the other point that you brought up that was really good is that, let's say you didn't say that to me and you didn't say, anything about the fish and you're trying to tough it out. There's no way you would have done as many shows.
Right. I probably wouldn't be competing right now.
Honestly, that's what happens. That's what happens, when these girls get on these grind preps. And that's what I hate about the whole coaching system, the way we have it set up, where, someone does a show and then their coach did a certain thing with them where they did 2 hours of cardio and 800 calories. And that's all they know. And then they start coaching people. So then they give that to their clients. And then that client starts coaching people. They give that to their clients. And the only thing these people know in 90% of the market is, kill them with cardio and feed them, air, that's the thing. Right. And so we're like, okay, you guys do that. You get in shape. There's a lot of ways to get in shape. I'm not going to knock that it gets people in shape. It gets people in shape doing it that way. It might not be the most effective way. It might not be the most efficient way. Not the best way to keep muscle probably, but it will get you lean, right? It will do that eventually. So the problem that comes with it is that now that someone went from loving the gym, they were already fit, they only needed to lose, 10, 15 pounds to get in stage shape, but they went through this extreme. They did it, they hated it, they grinded it out, they have that badge of honor that they grinded it out, right? They talk about it. Now, all that people see is that person's grinding it out because they're talking about it, the badge of honor. Oh, I grinded 2 hours of cardio. So everyone sees how miserable it is and no one wants to do it based off that example. And then the person who did it, they then don't compete again because it's too hard. It's too much to ask. It's too much on the body, right? But I'm like, dude, if you would just compete and do it in a realistic way where you kind of didn't kill yourself in prep, one, you would enjoy it and probably do more shows. And two, you probably wouldn't be blowing up so much in the off season because you wouldn't feel so deprived that you'd have to eat everything because you felt so deprived, right? Yeah. Everyone's like, how does Ashley stay so lean or whatever? I'm like, well, one, she's got a strong mindset. We know that. But two, we're not starving her so bad where her body's just like, give me food.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I like my prep food. Yeah. The foods that is on the menu, I chose for it to be. I like it, you know? And it's a lot of the stuff I would eat in the off season too. Like honestly, if calories didn't even matter, I'd probably eat something similar.
Yeah.
Honestly. But yeah, I think like not only does it make it miserable for those athletes that like, oh, I can never do that again. And that's the one and done competitors, right? Because they grinded the prep so hard. They're like, I can't do this again. Right. Yeah. But also it gives the illusion to the people that aren't doing that. Like, oh, wow, that's what I should be doing. Oh my gosh, I need to do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like they feel like they're not working hard enough. And it's not about necessarily working the hardest, but the smartest, which is why when somebody says, you're the hardest worker I know, I'm like, well, it depends, how you look at it. Maybe over a span of 10 years, maybe, I don't know. But as far as like in the moment, I guarantee you for the Arnold coming up, there's probably a girl out there doing 2 hours of cardio and 800 calories. And at that point I would say, yeah, she's definitely working harder. Now it's not smarter. No, for sure not. It doesn't necessarily translate like that.
Yeah.
So
I would agree with that. That's a fair analogy. Yeah.
So that's why I'm always like, well, it's how you look at it. It's, some people like to grind like that. And then, I would say most don't, but there is that small portion that likes to feel that hunger and stuff, but sure as heck not me. It's not everyone else either. And I do think that those are the people also that like they like it in the moment, but at the end of prep, they're so like starved and just mentally like exhausted from eating the same foods over and over that they're just like done and they'll blow up. Yeah. So even though you might like it in the moment, when you're done and get exposed to real food, you might go crazy. So something to keep in mind.
Yeah. And there's also, and the other thing that goes into that too is like hormonally things will happen the lower you go, the more cardio you do. You're crashing your testosterone, your thyroid levels are lower at the end. There's a lot of other things that go into that causing that post-show rebound too. But when you compile all of them together, you really kind of set yourself up for a bad scenario on a rebound. So yeah, we try to do it as, as high as calorie and as low as cardio as possible. Some people aren't going to live like that. Like some people it's just not going to work for with, today's level of conditioning that we need. So it's different per person, but I'm glad that question comes. It stemmed off on some new stuff. But yeah, it's going to be, I think the keys to take away is that, think about your setup after the show. Think about, your mindset going into the show. Do you need to have those refeeds? Do you need to have that freedom to do this for a long period of time? And I think you can ask yourself, like, is this so hard that you don't want to do it again while you're in prep? Then maybe you should kind of move things around a little bit so it's not such a grind, and just talk to your coach about it. Because I think that that's an important thing that we don't look at enough. We don't talk about, okay, can you do this forever type of thing? Or is it so crazy that this is like a one and done thing for you?
Right. Another option too would just be like a longer, less intense prep, with the NPC, it's different with the IFBB because it's like, how can I not do the Arnold? How can I not do Olympia? Duh. Of course I'm going to. But for the NPC, you've got many options and many shows. And, if you're trying to make this prep work in 12 weeks and you're feeling miserable, like, just so you know, there'll be another show if you want to push it back a month and just have a more gradual weight loss. You can do it that way. Like, but there's no need to like push it so hardcore just to getting ready for this one local show when there's another local show the following month and you could be less miserable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's important, really important to talk about too, because I'll have some once in a while, and I usually will catch it now, but sometimes it still happens. I'll talk to someone about, doing a show, or maybe they'll enroll for a 16-week prep or a 6-month prep thinking they're going to do whatever show. And then when you get down to it, when you're like 12 weeks out, they're like, yeah, will I be ready for whatever show, right? And I'm like, well, when you started prep, you needed to lose, 40 pounds, 50 pounds. Unlikely we're going to get there in the next 12 weeks. And then they're like, well, I already signed up and I'm going to do it because I already signed up. And I'm like, it's like $120, like you could just do a later show. You're not complete. Like you could just, it's a lot healthier for you to just to lose $120, do it a different show, push it back to where it's a more realistic time frame. But you do run into that sometimes. So what I will say to competitors, if your first time, you're just getting used to competing, you're just starting competing, like don't register until you know you're in shape for the show. Wait till 2 weeks out. There's no difference of cost effectiveness of if you do it closer to the show or later to the show. Just think about that because that is something that comes up on the NPC, like on like an amateur girl. They'll sign up for the show before they even sign up for prep. And then you're like, hey, like there's no way we're going to get here. But then they do whatever they have to get there. And then they never look as good as they could have looked. And it was because of, the entry fee, so it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. If you've never prepped before, allow yourself a time cushion too. You could be ready for this show if every week is perfect, but realize not every week will be perfect. You might get sick. You might hurt your foot. You might not be able to go to the gym because you're snowed in, whatever, life. And sometimes the body just doesn't want to cooperate every single week like that. So allow yourself a time cushion. That's like, hey, if you're ready ahead of time, perfect. That means you can eat more coming into the show, but allow that little gap. That's like, you know what? This is my extra time in case I need to push it a little harder this last month. So.
Yeah, and I think with that, will that be our Arnold talks? Yeah. So. I'm gonna do an Arnold video this week, guys. If any of you are watching on YouTube, I'm gonna do an Arnold kind of going who's on the show list and whatnot. I don't know if it'll be full predictions or whatnot, but we'll do it this week. And yeah, that's basically it. So thank you guys so much for listening. Cheer on Ashley if you're going to the Arnold. If you're going to the Arnold, say hi.
Say hi. We don't. And are you going to the Arnold?
Yeah, of course I'm going to Arnold, definitely.
Oh, like that wasn't as obvious.
Arnold, I'm always going to be at the Arnold, guaranteed. Arnold,
that wasn't. I mean, it's a
maybe not Arnold UK, but Arnold's.
I mean, okay. Well, Adam and I will be there. We don't bite. Say hi.
Yes, I'll definitely be there. So we'll see you guys there, and thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.